I waited 10 years for this game. Now I think the developers went too far.
I waited 10 years for this game. Now I think the developers went too far. Today is the big day. Finally, after so many years, it's finally out. That's what I was thinking while I carried the photocopies to Juan in accounting. It was a Wednesday at 10 a.m., and I had spent the entire morning doing favors for him. Thanks a lot. If you keep this up, you might even earn a promotion someday, the dickhead said with a satisfied smirk as he received the umpteenth favor of the day. I hate his voice. The way he moves. The ridiculous way he adjusts his shirt to show off part of his chest. But not even he can ruin today. It's the best day I've had in a long time. Today, after almost a decade, the video game I've been waiting for since it was announced is finally coming out. There have been at least 5 years of delays between pre-launch announcements, news about it only being on certain platforms, and even rumors of cancellation. These last few months were genuinely exciting. As soon as they opened up early access, I bought it. I had to max out part of my credit card, but it's totally worth it. It was a lot of money, sure. But that was nothing compared to what I invested in my PC just to run it properly. Everything is ready. I left my PC on so I could start the download as soon as possible. I even downloaded a remote access app. That was the only way I could start the download from work. Exactly at 12 noon, I needed to trigger it, since it weighs in at over 100 GB. Games today are massive. I remember when games didn't even hit 1 GBs, but of course, download speeds were minuscule back then. I remember downloading a free-to-play game at 128 kbps. Sure, those games could be vast, but their graphical quality was very limited. I think I actually got used to bad graphics. They even trigger a certain nostalgia in me, a particular taste. They're like watching a black and white movie, a sign of a simpler world with fewer worries, where life, perhaps viewed from that lens, was easier. And of course, I remember downloading my first street game. It was a mind-blowing experience. Going out into the streets, jacking any car, and roaming the city with almost absolute freedom was incredible. The camera movements were clunky, the combat was crude, and the graphics were ugly as hell. But the feeling that you were capable of anything in a random city was wonderful. At exactly 12, I started the download and checked it every hour during the gaps left by my daily tasks. We were in the middle of the fiscal year-end close. There were tons of papers that had to be moved from one office to another, and I was basically the errand boy. The first 20% got me way too excited. It was finally a reality, downloading right onto my rig. When it hit 50%, I stared at the screen, stunned. I obsessively checked social media, reconfirming that today was indeed the launch day and that I was downloading the correct game. A stream even popped up of someone already playing it, but I didn't want to spoil the pleasure of enjoying it myself. When 5 o'clock hit, quitting time, the download had finished. I closed the remote access app, gathered my things, and was about to rush out of the office. Just at that moment, Juan walked in. I see you were using company equipment for personal matters. It's none of your business what I do on my break, as long as I fulfill my obligations. We're getting aggressive, kid. Look, you need to slow down your rhythm, or you'll never be successful like me. I let out a suppressed laugh, finished packing my stuff, and proceeded toward the door. As the boss was saying to you, your uncle. The boss. Yeah, exactly. Your uncle. My uncle asked me to tell you that you need to stay another hour to verify that no documents were left on the desks. The information handled today is very sensitive, and a misplaced document is a serious issue. Anything you find out of place, you need to leave in my office for review. Sounds like that's your job. Well, it sounds to me like I'm going to go play street, and you're going to have to review what I told you. It was the longest hour of my life. The last people left the office around 5:50. I gathered the papers and left them where I was told. Luckily, I live just a few blocks from the office, so I prefer to walk. It gives me a chance to disconnect a bit. I fished a pack of cigarettes and a lighter from my pocket, lit one, and took a long drag. I exhaled the smoke and started walking along the gray sidewalk that stretched out in front of the white building with its large windows. I walked until I reached a burger joint. I went in. The place was practically empty. The only people there were a guy with a green punk mohawk and an older woman a bit overweight. I approached the counter and ordered a simple combo. "Do you want to upsize your order?" asked the girl with messy hair under an orange cap and slightly smudged makeup. "I don't think so. Long day, don't you think?" "You can say that again. I'm almost done with my shift." "Hope you get some rest," I said, noticing a semi-flirty tone. Despite her tired eyes, she was a beautiful girl. Her cheekbones formed a lovely triangle with her mouth, and her full lips drew a subtle smile. "Maybe we can grab a drink later." She took the receipt paper and wrote down her name and phone number. I grabbed my order, shoved the paper in my pocket, and walked out toward my house. As I left, I saw a naked man running and shouting very strange things. I waited a moment to see if anyone else appeared from one side of the street or the other, but there was nothing. I could hear the man's voice fading as he ran away. I kept walking down the empty street. Night was starting to fall, and it was odd that this particular street didn't have any cars or people. I walked a few more blocks and saw the reason for such solitude. There was an accident involving at least 3 vehicles. It didn't look too serious, but the ambulance sirens were already approaching. I had to detour since the police were blocking the way. I went around the gym located right on the corner. As I passed the door, I ran into 2 friends coming out of training. "Hey, haven't seen you since school. Want to go for a drink? Bet you don't have plans." "Actually, I have to do something. It's, a work thing." "Come on, have one drink. It won't take a minute." "Can't do it, guys. Maybe later." I reached my street and saw some new graffiti. A pair of sea turtles swimming freely, completely covering the back of the civil registry building. It was very elaborate for simple street art, but at least it was pretty. I took out my phone, snapped a photo, and posted it on Instagram, Bass Street Art. While I was browsing the hashtag, I saw that street was officially out. I entered my building, a 20-story exposed brick tower called the elevator, and waited as a gray-haired man arrived with his dog, who was almost equally gray. The man entered and thanked me for waiting. I got to my apartment and opened the wooden door with one hand while holding my burger in the other. I dropped my bag on the small sofa in the living room and sat at my desk. I turned on the machine. The blue LED lights illuminated my hands, and I saw I had a few paper cuts. I took out the burger, put the fries next to the keyboard, and ate while watching the PC boot up. I decided to put on a funny video while I finished eating. I didn't want to ruin the experience with greasy hands. It was one of those animal videos with voiceovers added that give them personality. I finished eating, grabbed my soda, opened it carefully, and took a sip. Then I threw the wrappers in the trash and opened Street. The good stuff was starting. The loading screen showed images of street art, vehicles, and women in bikinis. It took a few seconds to verify the version. I pressed play. The game started with a short cutscene introducing the protagonist, having an argument with a colleague while escaping what looked like a gang fight. The game dropped me onto the street with an almost completely clean map, no HUD indicators, just a random street. The camera movement was extremely fluid. The glare on the vehicle reflections was incredible. The smoke particle graphics were truly surprising. I even walked up to a pane of glass and could see my semi-blurred reflection as I approached the window. There was zero sensation of lag. I tried to activate my PC's FPS counter, but I couldn't get it to work. I looked for a vehicle so I could tour the city and see more of the graphics. I stood in the middle of the street and a car stopped. I smashed the window easily, but the man driving resisted. We had a brief fight. The combat was fluid, but the sound of the punches was somewhat uncomfortable. Blood stained my character and part of the vehicle. I got in and started driving. As I moved forward, I checked the side of the car. The window was still broken and blood was staining the door. Nice detail. The driving was quite sensitive. The only thing was that when I crashed into people, the car damaged rapidly and the windshield filled with blood. Quite realistic, but it verged on unsettling. I did a few laps around the zone until I found a building with white walls and large windows that looked particularly familiar. I kept driving until I found a burger joint. It seemed they had made a deal with the creators to feature the same burger brand. What a nice touch. I approached the counter and looked for the controls to order food, but they weren't very clear. The cashier NPC got overwhelmed and said she would get her boss, that even though she was leaving, she would help me. A woman approached me wearing the establishment's cap, but casual clothes, messy hair, and pretty eyes. Even in games, the cashiers are cute, I thought. I managed to check the controls to order, but I couldn't get anything. I got stressed by the difficulty of the controls and checked the weapon wheel. I had a 9mm, a magnum, and a knife. Good opportunity to test the weapons. I pulled out the magnum and fired at the register. It exploded in a very realistic way, and the NPCs dropped to the floor with their hands over their heads. I aimed and shot the girl in the head. Brains splattered all over the floor of the place. It was pretty uncomfortable. The second NPC ran out. I shot him to test the distance damage. The NPC dropped to the ground immediately. The combat is strangely simple, but the realism leaves an unsettling feeling. I started hearing sirens. It would be a good chance to test the pursuit mechanics. I went out and got in the vehicle, drove a few streets down, and there was an accident with 3 vehicles. I kept going. They were chasing me. I ran over the paramedics while trying to dodge the cars. The sound of breaking bones made my stomach turn. Maybe they shouldn't have added that sound, I thought, already planning my review of the game. Passing the accident, I saw the same sea turtle graffiti. Hey, they used street art as part of the game promotion too. What a great detail. I saw a brick building, very similar to mine. Not much creativity among architects, I thought. The building's security guard tried to stop me. I took the opportunity to test the knife combat. A couple of stabs and the man fell. Seriously, it's too simple. I saw a security fire axe and took it because I wanted to test another weapon, and if the cops arrived, it would be useful. Let's find my apartment. It'll be fun to see how they decorated the interiors. I got in the elevator and pulled the axe from the menu. There's no better way to open that wooden door than with a good axe blow. I charged a heavy attack and swung the axe at the door. I heard a strange sound outside. It didn't come from the game. I took off my headphones. I peeked into the living room. My door was broken, and a man with an axe was waiting on the other side.